Hi guys, welcome to this particular video where we'll be taking a look at React styled component, right? So we'll be going through a couple of things actually, right? So just sit back and relax. Now what I want you guys to do for me is hit on the subscription bell, make sure that you subscribe to this particular channel, make sure that you like this particular video as well, and drop a comment about your thoughts about what you feel about the video as well, right? All of this engagement with the video, with the channel actually will help YouTube algorithm to share our video with more people and refer our video with more people, right? So just go on the comment section there and type React styled component so that more people that are looking for courses and crash courses like this on style components will get to see this video and will definitely want to watch this particular video, right? So without wasting much of our time, let's just get straight to this thing, right? So right here on my React application, on my system, I already have Create React app installed, fresh. Everything is installed and it's fresh. So the next thing I would love to do, I would also love to install React router. So I will go over here and I will copy this and I would come to my project and I will paste it here. Let me create a new terminal and I'll paste it here. And while that is installing, I would also go to style component. So style component, the website is style-component.com, right? So once you go to style components, the next thing we want to do is to go to their documentation, right? So once we go to their documentation, we'll click on basic right here. And now let's take a look at what style component is all about, right? So style component is the result of wondering how we could enhance CSS for styling React component systems, right? And one of the benefits of style components, according to this particular documentation, is the fact that it automates critical CSS, right? Style components can also help to solve conflict, CSS class conflict. So sometimes when you're working on a very large project, right, there might be CSS conflicts with your naming convention and so on and so forth. So no class name bugs, easier deletion of CSS, because once each CSS in style component is applied to that particular element that you created, right? So with style component now, if you want to delete a CSS, unlike a regular project, if you create a CSS name and you delete it, you might be worried that it's going to affect the entire project. But with style component, that particular CSS is just tied to that particular element you created. So if you want to delete it, it just affects only that element alone, right? And you'll not be worried if this particular class name have been used elsewhere, so that particular code will not break, right? So style component is simple dynamic styling, right? It is painless to maintain, automatic vendor prefixing, right? So that means style components automatically create styles, CSS classes for us, right? So we don't need to be worried about, okay, what will be our class name and so on and so forth, right? So the next thing we want to see here is how do we get started with style component? How do we install style component? Now, if you want to install style component, you can install it with Yarn, or better still, you can use the npm version. Me, I'm going to use the npm version, so I'm just going to copy that particular code here. As you can see, my React router DOM is done installing. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to paste it over here and I will install this as well, right? So so that's what we're going to do. So our style component is installing, and the next thing I want to do now, we've installed our style component. The next thing I want to do now is just to clean up a lot of things here, right? So I will come over here, I will go to this logo.svg. We don't need it, so I'm going to delete it, right? We don't need the logos.svg file, the index.css file as well, like we don't need it as well, so we're going to delete it as well. The app.js test file, we don't need this as well. What we just need is app.js. We don't need this particular test file, right? So we just need this basically. So this test file, I'm going to delete it as well. And what else don't we need? So I'll come over here and all of this logo as well. I think I've deleted the logo as well too. So we don't need all of this. And basically all of this, let's just clear the app in total, clear all of this, and let us say my empty project. All right, you save this, and you could see that there is still a lot of errors there. So let's see where our errors are coming from. Let's go to this particular point. Nothing to delete here actually. Let's see. Index.jx. Yep, so this CSS file here, we don't need it as well, so let's delete it as well, that particular line. And there you go, everything should be working fine now. So we have like our empty React project all set up, so we're ready to start working. Now before we do, the first now we would love to do is to set up our React router. So right here I'm using React router version 6 that we installed, and we can easily basically just set this stuff up. And it's quite easy to set your React router up, right? So the first thing you want to do is this particular line of code. We want to import our browser router from React router DOM, and we're going to put this inside our index.jx file. So that's how we get our React router done inside. So bring it here, import our browser router here, and we can just enclose this inside here as well. Let's take our app inside. Right, all right, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to save this, and inside here as well we also want to bring in our file that we use, where basically we create our route. So let's see where they created the route here. So this is what we just need basically. So we just need here where they create our route, but in this case we don't need like browser router, we just need like basically routes and route. So I'll go back to my app.js. I'm going to paste this here. I'm going to take this one outside, don't need all of this, right? Perfect. So this is basically what we need, right? In my usual fashion, what I would basically love to do in order to create our route is create an empty file like this, and we can create our route inside of it, and it will be working perfectly fine for us. So I'm going to create my routes now. All right. Oh, this stuff is supposed to help me and just automatically create everything. All right, that's our routes. So let's create our home page. So our home page is definitely going to be very simple. So I'm going to use routes. So that's route there. So I'm going to have my path / and our elements. So in this case now, so let's just try this. So this is going to be like our home page, right? So if I put a div inside here now and I say home, right? So if we go back to what we are building, we are going to see home here. So our route has been set up. So the next thing we want to do now is create a file here. I'll create I love to work with two directory structures. I have to look like home page, and I love to work with the home page, and I also love to work with component pages, right? So I'm just going to do stuff like this. I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call this pages, and I'm going to create a new folder here as well, and I'm going to call this components, right? So this is not really needed. This is me just like doing what I would do on a normal day, right? So I'm not going to say home.jsx here, home.jsx. So I'm going to hit this down. I'm going to say rscf, a shortcut, just quickly let me create a functional component. And so yeah, so that's it. So I can come in here now and basically just import my home, right? So this should give me my home. Yep. All right, so the home has been imported for me. So that's it there. So I have my home page here. So the next thing I want to do basically is start to work my style component. But before I work my style component, I want to show you guys something, right? There's an extension that you might want to install so that it will help you like style your components very well. So that it will help you like show you the format of your style component. And this is not the component, this is the extension. extension that I would love you guys to install. So this extension, the VS Code extension, is a syntax highlighting for style component. So if you don't have it installed inside of your VS Code, that is, if you're using VS Code, you might want to have this particular VS Code style component extension installed. So once you install it, your style component code will be highlighted. So that being said, let's go back to our profile. So the next thing I want to do now in this particular documentation, now what we are going to do is we are going to try our best and see if we can actually go through this documentation one after the other, right? So the first thing I want to do now is the getting started. So we will just try and write our first style component. So this is how you get started with style component, right? So inside our component here, I'm just going to create a file. I'm going to create a file that's going to be our styling, and we'll just call it general basically. So inside here now, let me create something. I'm going to create a folder. So because it is my style, I'm just going to add it with .style, right? So let's say let's call this one elements, right? I'm going to say elements .style. So the style is not compulsory, it's just a way to know that okay, this particular stuff is styled. So instead of CSS, now definitely is going to be .js, right? So element does this. So our style component is going to live inside here, of course, right? So the first thing I want to do when creating our style component is to import our style component. So I'm going to say import styled from our style component. All right, so we'll have that there. So the next thing we want to do now, I want us to create like a section, right? So let's call it like a section. So I'm going to say export. I'm going to say export constant section is equal to now style. So now whenever you want to create style component, this is working style component, this is the syntax, right? So this style is what we imported from style component. So you add it with dots. So this dot now will follow by the tag name or the tag or the element, the HTML element that you want to create, right? So but in this case now, I want to create the HTML element of section, right? Not div. So I'm going to create it with section. So once I do that, for me to start writing my normal CSS now, I'm going to use backticks, right? So once I have backticks now, my normal CSS come inside of this place. So this is what you just need to know. So style component works like normal CSS class. So instead of CSS class right now that you're already used to, all you just need to do is export constant section, which is like a variable but is equal to the style that we imported from style component then dot section, right? And we can start writing our CSS. So let's write our first CSS. For example, now I could say my position. I love to give a position. So our position relative, as you can see, it's because of that extension, and that is why my style component is being highlighted, right? So I'm going to say position relative, and I'm going to say width 100%, of course. I'm going to say padding. I can give my padding like I give my padding like 50 px 0 px. All right, that's what I'll give my padding. And my background now. Background, I'll give this background like let's say F8 F8. All right, so this is cool. So I'll save this now. So where I want to use this particular section now, I'll go back to my home and I'll import it from here. So I'm going to say import. I'll put it inside here. I'll say import section now from my style component. So in this case now, it's like this. So this stuff is stepping backwards to components / all right, so that's it. So we have it there, and so we can use this section now, right? So anywhere we like, we can basically use this section. So I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to say, okay, let's add this particular section tag there. I'm going to say so this is what we have. Let us type something, right? And let's see what we have now. And as you can see, it has added a little gray area for us. I think this stuff is really is really white, so we can't really see it. So let's fade it a little bit, right? Let's see what F5 will give us. Okay, this is much better. So you could see that the little background is added and you could see type in there, right? So that is how you write basically simple CSS with style component, right? So the next thing I want to do, I love to create again is wrapper. So let's try and see if we can create wrapper. So I'm going to say export constant wrapper. This is me. We're already creating style component, right? Wrapper, I'll say equal to style dot. Now I want to use a div, as I said, style, then the tag, then we'll say backticks, right? And in this case, I also want my position to be relative, right? It's not the time you declare position relative though. It depends on what you're working on. I'm going to say width. I want my width now to be 85%, right? I want my margin to be auto, right? So I'm going to have something like this. So if I want to use this wrapper now, it's just basically the same thing. So if I go back to my home page, I can do something like this. Let me break this down a little bit. I can say something like this. I can say comma wrapper now, since it's coming from the same place. Then we can now wrap this around, right? So I could do something like this now. Aha. So this is almost like creating the style component. Now we're not creating CSS. So we're going to use use inspect element to see what style component has been creating for us. So this is what we have. So we have like our type in there. So if we right click now and say inspect, and the moment we inspect this inside our stuff, you could see that the first div that it created for me was the section div. It automatically generated some sort of a class here, and the container div, the wrapper div, sorry, is this other one. As you can see, it's there and it's containing type, right? So basically, that is how you get started with style component, right? So let's do one more thing. Let's add one more thing. So the next time I want to add now probably is like h1, right? So instead of me adding like h1 here, I can add like something like h1 here now. I can say let's say learning styled components. All right, that's correct. So this is what we're going to have. Learning style components is definitely going to look like this, right? So let me try and change this. So if I want to work that with style component, I will go back here too as well, and I will say export constant. So let's call this particular one now h1 heading 1 or something of that nature. So I'm going to say heading 1, or some folks might call it title, it depends, but let me just call it heading 1. I will say is equal to style dot, the tag is h1 backtick. I can style it now. I can say okay, font size. I want my font size to be 44 points basically for my h1, and I want the color should be 575757. All right, this is cool. Then where I want to use it now, and I will come over here now and I'll say comma or import my h1, and this is going to be my h1, right? Aha, so we've styled that particular h1. Now you could see how h1 is now 44px. If we inspect now and we come over here in our section under our wrapper, we'll get h1 right here, right? All created with styled component. So the next thing I want to do now is to create a paragraph text. So I could still use paragraph text if I really want to style it, but if I don't want to style it, I might just leave it like this. But if I want to style it, instead of me creating CSS right now, I could use my style component to style it. In fact, let's style this particular paragraph text, right? So I'm going to export again. I'm going to say export constant paragraph equal to style.p, just exactly the same thing, probably the same two properties here. Font size, now we are going to say let the font size be what, 14, right? And let's go and do the same thing too again. Go back to home we'll import it as well, and place it here, and we'll also place it here basically, right? Sorry, let me minimize this a bit. We place it here, right? So you see our paragraph have been styled as well. So basically that is how you get started with style components, and congratulations, you have actually started writing your own style component. Now the next thing that we want to see here is, in fact, let me just close this tab. We'll not be doing anything with React anymore. So the next thing I want to will be seeing here, if you follow this particular documentation, whenever I'm taking a crash course like this or teaching people crash course like this, one of the things I love to do is go through the documentation, so that at the end of the day, on your own, you can also go through the documentation and understand what they are trying to say inside of the documentation, right? So as you can see, this is the official documentation. So the next thing that we want to see is adapting base props, and how you can actually pass props inside of style component, right? So I'm going to show you guys how you can definitely pass props inside of style component and create more than one section thereabout, right? So let's try and pass a particular prop. So what I mean by property is that, for example, this background is gray, and let's say we want another section whereby it will not have a background basically, right? So let's see what we could do. So let's see how we can pass a property. Now for us to do that in this particular section, one of the easy things that we could do is to say, we could just state like, okay, let this be light, for example. So light like this now is already a property, right? So let's go and catch it, right? So as you can see, as it is light, it is showing. Let's say this one is light, but if it's not showing, it's going to be nothing. So I'm going to come in here now, under where we style our section, under this particular background, right? We can pick in style component. For us to pick in that particular property, it will just look like the normal JavaScript, where you are trying to like write a variable inside of a string, because of course this is backtick, just normal JSX, right? Concatenation in JSX, right? So you have this $sign here, and with this particular $sign now, we can actually catch our props just like this, and this is going to be an arrow function, of course. So once an arrow function, so the next thing that we want to do now is to pick that particular prop. So I'm going to say, I'm going to run like a simple if statement. I'm going to say if props dot light light is set basically. So what should happen, right? So let the background be this particular background. Sorry, Ctrl Z. Let the background be F5 F5 F5. Else let the background be what? FFF. Let the background be full white, right? So this is what we're going to have now. Let's see. So of course we're going to have this gray area, right? And if we go back to our home, if we remove this light property right now, we're not going to have any color, right? In fact, let's create it 2 times, right? Let me leave this one, Ctrl Z. Let me leave this. So let me create another simple section. I'm going to copy this and duplicate it, and now this one is going to have light, right? So this is how we have 2 different sections with 2 different properties. So this one have a light background, but if it does not have light, it's going to be a white background. So that's how you can pass property, right? So this is like a direct way to pass property. But let's take it one more step. Let's take it one more step in such a way that now we'll be able to like create BG and you're able to add background, right? So let's use BG instead, right? So in this case now, instead of like, let's change this to BG and say BG is equal to, we'll give it a certain color. So let's give it #CCC for example. So I will come back here. I will say if props dot BG. So since it's the BG is the name of the props, right? Is set. Let's this stuff be what? Props.bg. So I'm going to say props.bg. Else let it be white, for example. Now let's do that. So let's see what we're going to have as well. So we're going to have that gray area. So in this kind of way that we'll pass this particular prop right now, right? So we can choose to say, okay, let this even be red. Any color that we add here automatically become the background color of that particular section, right? So this is one simple way this is one simple way you can actually pass a prop. Let's change it back to F5, F5. So this is one simple way you can actually pass a prop inside of styled components, right? And it's quite very easy, right? So that's one of the ways to do that. So the next thing that we want to check now is extending styles. So but before we treat extending styles, right, the next one we'll love us to treat is extending styles. But before we treat extending styles, let's just try and create a simple button and see how we can actually extend that particular button to something else, right? So let's get a simple button. So I will come over here under my element. I'm going to create a button now. I'm going to say export constant button is equal to style as usual. In this case, let's say we want it to be button and backtick, of course. We can now start writing our button tag basically, right? We can start writing our button CSS, right? We can say, okay, font width should be bold. We want it to be a little bit bold. And border, we don't want border for that particular button, so it's going to be 0px. Background, the background of the button is going to be #016cc4, something of that nature. And color of the button is going to be white. So let's say triple F, right? It's going to be white. Okay, let's see what we have now. So I'm going to take this button, go back to my home, and basically import this particular button. And in the first one, in the first style component, let's import this particular button here. Let's use it here. So we're going to put it here, and let's write explore in it, something like this. Then let's see what we have. So basically, this is what we have, right? So let's make the button a little bit bigger. Let's add some CSS to that particular button again. Let's add padding actually. I would love to use 10px, 10px, 30px. All right, this is cool. All right, now it looks more better now. It looks more like a button. So this is how our button looks like now. Explore. Now in style components, we can extend our class. Instead of us creating a new class, instead of us creating a new style or a new component, you can actually extend that particular component. It's like you just working with normal JavaScript class and you're using what we call inheritance, right? Just like inheritance in normal programming. Now, what I'm going to do now is to do that particular extension. So instead of me to create a new button, right, I'm just going to create another one now. I'm going to say export constant, another element, and this element is going to be called block button. I'm just going to call it block button, right? And I'm going to say equal to styled. Now instead of me to say style button, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say in brackets button, right? So just by me putting in bracket button, it will automatically have the same styling as all of this style of this particular button, right? And I don't need to do anything now. I can now add another new style on top of it. So the new style I can add here now could be just saying, okay, look, I want the button to be a block button, so let the width be like 100%, right? So I'll save this now. I'll copy block button, and I'll come down here, and let's import it as usual, and let's use it in the second one, right? And I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and I'm going to call this one learn more. Let's just say learn more, right? So let's put it in there, and you could see it's learn more. It has basically inherited the same style of this same button, but we have extended it. The only thing I would do is just add 100%, but everything that we do here will be the same thing. So even if I go back here and change the color here to something else, let's say like red, for example, you see it affects both places because this other one is extending and inheriting all of this particular CSS and adding this new one into it basically, right? So I'm going to Ctrl Z because I want my color to still be that. So the next thing I would love us to treat before we proceed is basically how to style a link, right? So how do we style a link? Let's say we want a clickable like an anchor link, and how can we do that? And especially when we are working with React and we want to work with link tag, right? The link React element So React router element. So if I do something now, for example, now I go to my home, and over here I click on, I say something like import link. Of course, you should be familiar with React router. Done. Link from React router DOM. Alright, that's it. So we could easily do that. And this particular link now, let's say I just want to add it here and say, for example, click here. Hey, what did I press? Alright, I can say click here. Let's do this. Alright, now you can add the regular to let us put a sign there, and let me just type click here. It's just a fair example. So basically this is the link here, right? So basically, how can we style this particular link to ensure that it's working as a link and we can still use to? Now this will lead me to the next thing I want to talk about. So I will come down inside here and I will treat something like this. I will say I'll create a wrapper. So I want to call this export constant link wrapper. Let's use the word link wrapper is equal to styled, right? So styled, I'm going to say span. I'm going to use the span element here, and the moment I use the span element, now I can start typing my CSS. Now this is just like connectors in CSS, whereby you write a particular class, you use stuff like this. Know that in CSS, what I'm about to do now is you write a class, let's say like a div. Now you can do something like this and say a, so I can style a, right, in the regular CSS. So that's the exact thing I want to do now. But in this case, I'm just going to say a, right? That means because link tag, the link element from React router DOM is basically a, right? It's basically an anchor tag. So I'm going to style it like this. So in this case now, the next thing I'm going to do now, I can say text decoration none, and I can say color what now? Color, let's give it the same color that we have been using here, right? So give it the same color that we've been using here. Font suites, let's give it bold as well. All right. So I'm going to copy this now. I'm going to save this. So I'm going to import my link wrapper here, and by the time I have my link wrapper here, then this particular link, I'm going to like enclose it with a link wrapper, right? So we're going to have something like this. My link is going to be inside of it, and this will be us basically doing what? Working with what? With link. So when we go back now, we could see that particular link, we styled it and it's working fine. It's working super fine. So that's one of the ways you can actually style your link. Now the next thing I want to treat is Pseudo Elements, right? So how can you style? You start in style component, style Pseudo Element. For example, hover effect. So when they hover over this button, we want like another color to appear, right? So let's see how we can style that. Now in style components, to work with hover, we'll go back to our button right here. So what you want to do, you want to start with this particular ampersand. So once you have your ampersand like this, so you want to put your column, then you put hover, right? So that's how you work with your hover. Then your hover styling falls inside this particular bracket. So in this case, you want to change the background. So let's say the background, you want to give it this particular color FF6C86, right? So that's the background I want to give it, right? So let's see what we have now. See, we automatically give me that particular hover effect automatically, right? So which is like super great and super amazing. So another thing we could do, we could even add like cursor pointer over there, so that once our mouse on top of it, it's basically change that particular cursor to cursor pointer, right? So basically that is how you can work with Pseudo Elements, not just only hover, active, focus, and so on and so forth, right? So the next thing I want to talk about again is basically styling child elements. So I'm just going to like re-emphasize that when you're studying child elements in normal CSS, just the same way that I did it here, over here, we could also style any particular child element. In fact, that's how you style child element. You add a span and there you go. You could also add its own class too as well, right? So for example, inside this particular one now, if let's see something, let me try something. If I want to style probably a p tag now inside this particular section, I can say p here, and I'll do something like this. And I'll say let the color, of course, be red. So I'll come here now. You see, I've styled the child element, like all the whole paragraph now inside of this particular section tag. Let it be red, right? So, and that is how you style child component inside of what child element inside of what styled component, right? So, and the next thing that I would also love us to treat here will be the double sign, right? So let's see how we can click the double ampersand sign, right? Let's see. Let's see what else. I don't really like the fact that this stuff is red. I'm not going to comment it out. I love it when it's not red. The red is annoying me. Alright, so that being said, so let's see what we want to do. So I'll go back to my second button now. Let's say I want this particular second button not to inherit this particular blue color, or let it be purple or something else, right? Another color. So I can come here and I can add a if I add a background color here and I say, okay, look guy, I want you to be purple. So if I come here, of course it's going to be purple, but I want this blue color, nothing should be able to overwrite this particular blue color. So there we are going to have this particular style. Let's come back to this particular one now. So I'm going to have a double ampersand sign, like 1 2 like this, and I'm going to do something like this. And in this case, I'll say, look, this background color, I want it to pass it through all the way around. You see, despite the fact that that particular one is purple, it's actually passing all the way around. Even hover cannot affect it as well, because we've already brought hover this way. Oh, let me cut it. Right? So of course now it works. So now, as you can see, because of this double ampersand sign in CSS, if you're familiar with CSS, this will work exactly what's important. In CSS we'll do something like exclamation mark, important, and so on and so forth, right? Something like this. Yeah, so this is us in CSS. So basically, instead of you doing that important there, you can actually use this particular double ampersand sign inside of your style component to actually create that particular important effect. Right, so another thing again I would love us to treat is how to add style, how to style attribute, and so on and so forth. So, but before we talk about styling attribute, I would love us to create another one. So I'm going to say export constant. Let's create an input field. Import constant input. I will say equal to styled. Styled dot input element. Then this is where our styling comes to play, and it depends. I could say let the width be 100% actually, and so let's just leave it like this first and see what we have. So if I go back to my home and I say, okay, look, bring me back this particular input tag, and inside this particular wrapper over here, I want to include this particular input field, right? So this is what I'm going to have. Of course, you could see I'm having that particular input field over here, and I can start to type stuff, right? So let me go ahead and style it again. So inside here, let me give it a margin. I'll give it a margin top, and let's say margin top 20%. Let's say padding. Let's give it padding. Try to be a little bit spacious. 30%, 10%. So this is exactly what we have, right? So let's say on active or on focus, we don't want this particular blue outline. So let's remove that. So I'm going to say ampad like this, and I'm going to say focus right? And I'm going to say outline basically 0px. So I believe that on focus that stuff should actually go away, so it will not be there anymore, right? So one of the things that I want to do is, how do we style attributes? I want to use this particular input field to explain how we can style attributes inside element using style component. So for us to do that, for us to style attributes effectively, for example, if I go back here now, I can say let the type be equal to text. So if this type is equal to text, it automatically means that they are going to type text here, or I add a placeholder here. I could add a placeholder and say, okay, let the placeholder be enter your name. Let me do something like this. Enter your name. So we could have stuffs like this, normal input, and we could change this type now to number, right? And if it is number, of course, I'll not be able to write text anymore. It's just going to be number, and of course, you're going to see the browser is going to give you stuff like this to show you that this particular input field type now is now number, just like a regular HTML, right? So in this case now, I want to force it to be text, regardless of whatsoever they pass here, right? So the way I'm going to do this, the way I'm going to start this particular input now is going to be a little bit tricky, right? So because I'm going to start with, let me show you how it is in the documentation first. So just in case you want to look for it in the documentation, right? Attaching props, right? So basically this is it. So this is it, attaching additional props, right? So you can just say dot attribute, and there you go, and it takes in a callback function of that particular props, right? So let's go and do this. So we'll come back here now, we'll say dot attrs. So this is going to take a callback function, of course. So I'm going to say props, which is this and this. So now we can now start styling our attribute inside here now. We can say type now. Let type, no matter what, be what? Text. So I'll save this now. If I go back and check my field now, right, despite the fact that I included number, right, it definitely gave me text, right? It's giving me text. Despite the fact that what we have here is actually number as the type. Remember, when we change it to number, it was showing us like number. We're not able to type text. But with this now, we want to style the attribute to force it to give me what? Text as well. So just in the same way too, that we have this particular placeholder that is enter your name. We could change it to something. Let's say we want to change it to e.g. John. So I'm going to say comma here, and I'm going to say placeholder. I'm going to say e.g. John, right? So you could see me saying e.g. John. So that is one way you can actually style attributes, right? And if you want to learn more, you can actually come in here and see how it's been done inside this particular documentation, and you could see other examples I was actually given to this particular topic right here. So another thing again that was covered in this particular documentation is the fact that you can actually override a certain style. For example, now you could see that inputs came in here and it was now forced to become password. So what they did here, let's try to replicate it. So what they did here is very simple. They bring this in here now, and even without putting anything inside of here, right? So they want this to be password in such a way that once you come in here now, you want to type like your password or something, right? So how can we override that particular attribute? It's very simple, right? You bring in the new element. You could see the new element here, password input, and you could see style is coming in as it's inheriting everything here, but now with this same attribute, right? And it's definitely going to inherit it, right? So let's try it. Let's do the same thing too. So what we're going to do now, we're going to say constant. I'm going to say export constant export constant input, or let's use the word password inputs, makes sense, is equal to styled. So this will work as if we are actually extending our elements, which we are extending input in this case, right? And in this case now we want to style the attribute, so we're going to say attribute. Then in our usual fashion, what we want to do here now is a callback function that's going to be props and this basically, and now I can say type. Let's type the word password, right? And let's placeholder the words enter the password. So once I have this now, I can go back to my home and basically import it here, and I will come in here now. I can add it actually, and we could see that everything is working fine. I think I have an error. Let me see. Do I have an error? So actually want us to do something. Let's see. What error do I have there? Let me add my backtick there and ensure there is no error now. So there is no error now. So it wanted us to add that to backtick. I didn't add this particular backticks there. So now we have like our password. It's now a password input, and it has been forced to be a password input, which I think it's like super great, right? It's really super great. So I have like two inputs. So let me delete the second one because it's basically the same thing, right? So text, we have our password there, and that is how you inherit what you inherit. You override a certain attribute. Now the next thing that I would love us to treat, which will be the last thing under this particular basic here, will be animation, right? So how can we work? How can we style animation? So we started with animation. Styled components have a particular helper, right? If you want to check the helper class, you go to under advanced. Let's open to a new tab. You go to under advanced. You click on okay, not under advanced, actually API reference, I think, under helpers, and you should be able to see where keyframe, where they spoke about keyframe and basically animation, right? So let's create a simple animation that looks like what they created right here on this particular example that is spinning, right? So the first thing I want to do is to import the keyframe helper, right? So I will go back here, and inside here now I'll say comma, and I will say what keyframe, right? So we're going to say keyframe, so you can see our keyframes there. So the moment we have our keyframe here, then we can now start writing our stuff. So I can say constant rotate is equal to keyframe. So so that's the way we do that. The helper, so we have our keyframe. So now we can add like our regular keyframe. We can now say from, right, from transform. Let's just transform rotate 0 degree, right, to, let's do this as well. I don't want to replicate something exactly the same example as seen inside the documentation. So this is going to be rotate 360 degree as well. So basically this is what we're going to have. So after we have this now is to style up the main class. So I'm going to say export spin. So let's call this spin. I'm going to call my spin. Export constant spin. Alright, constant spin is equal to, let's give this styled. We'll say styled dot div. So div, basically, and so let's start creating our style. So the most important style here is the animation style, of course, and all we need to do is to add our rotate here, right? So kind of add our rotate 2 seconds, for example. We can put linear, right? And what else? We can put infinite. All right. So let's take this pin now and bring it in here and say spin, and right here as well we can say spin as well, and say yeah, let us say loader. So this, I'm expecting this loader now to actually, woo, too big. You see, you see what's happening there, right? Yeah, it's basically because of this. So we could actually make it smaller like this. Let's just copy this one. Let us copy this, their styling here, and try to avoid that mighty rotation, right? So let's see what this will give us now. Yeah, this will give us something at least within that particular area because of that particular CSS. So basically display inline block, the same rotation, padding, and the rest, so we can have this little rotation around there. So basically that's how you work with animation. Now the next thing I would love to cover is how we work with what's media query, right? So this thing, you might be wondering, okay, now what if I have different view for my mobile device or so on and so forth, or for different breakpoints, right? So how do I work with media query? So let's do something. Let's say let's inspect this, right? And so we'll be able to like see this on phone. So let's say when it's on phone, we want this particular explore button to be a block button, just like this learn more button, right? So how do we do that, right? So how we work with media query, so we'll go back to buttons. So where is that button again? This particular button. So we'll just add media. So to add media to that element, you just say at media, right? Just say at media, right? So when you say at media, you can now say max width. In this case, let's say 768 for example, and we can start typing it now. So let's say width. So this width now is 100%, right? I'm going to do something like this. All right, let's px. All right, this stuff, let's see. So max width at media, max width 700 px. So let's say we have button. Yeah, this should work perfectly fine. All right. Alright, let me see what's the problem now. I'll come in here. I want to believe that it's not our link wrapper that is affecting it. Alright, so basically the little error here is just this particular semicolon. But that semicolon is not working, and we don't need to put that semicolon there, so that the media stuff will definitely work perfectly fine. So of course, this is how you work with media query. Just add at media maximum width. I didn't see that semicolon at first. I guess the highlighter just helped me to add that, and it's giving me an error. So you also might want to watch out for that particular error too as well, to ensure that you don't have semicolon. For example, the moment semicolon is here, you could see that this stuff is no longer responding, right? The new media query style is no longer responding, but once the semicolon is not there, it's actually responding perfectly, right? So that's how you want to actually check that out as well. You can even say, let's change the background. Whenever it is on mobile, let's say we want to change the background to red or something. So it just basically, it changes, right? It changes for us that way. So, and of course, it's not going to change because of this ampersand sign here. This stuff that we have here, but we don't have it, it's definitely going to change. Is this particular ampersand that is actually affecting the background color. not to take effect, but I don't want the background color. I just want to clarify the fact that at media, at smaller screen, we want it to be like full width, but on a larger screen, we just want this particular button to be like a smaller button like this, right? So that is how you work with media query. Now, one of the last thing I want to treat before we end this particular video will be me talking about global styles, right? For example, now you could see our body is not really quite cool because there's a little padding that the body tag actually work with. So let's see how we can work with global styles inside of using style component. Now, if you go to the API version and you click on helpers, I think one of the first things you're going to see is how to create global styles, right? So let's create the global styles, right? For us to create the global styles, like a helper, and you just say create global styles and the rest. So let's try it out. So what I'm going to do, or what I would love to do, is always come on that component and create one particular stuff here, and we're going to call it global.style.js. Okay, let's do that. So once we have this, so this is where we're going to create our global styles basically, right? And you could see the way it's created, right? So we're just going to import all of this line here, and we're going to say import create global style from style component. So the next thing we want to do now is to say constant. Let me export this. I always love to export constant, just in case you want to export more than one thing here. Export constant global style. Let's call it like this. Global style is equal to this particular helper. Create global style. Then we can now start styling our stuff. So in this case now, what can we style? Just the way we saw it here, we can style our regular HTML, our body tag, and so. So I can say my body, I want to create a margin of 0px. Now, if you look at our job here, what I want to eradicate is this little white area around this particular stuff, right? So I will do that. And for me to do this now, I will just import this inside my app.js, and I will come here under my app.js and say import global style from, let me minimize this a bit, import global style from this, and we can easily come in here now and include it inside of here and say something like this, right? And automatically our global style have been applied. You see, that is super amazing. It works like magic, actually. Works like magic. Just imagine if you want to change like the background of the body tag, you just come here and say background, and let me use something like very quick, something like this. You could see that the background warning link upper is different but never use link up. It is because of that stuff I moved there. I moved out there, right? So so many things can go on here. So let's try this. This should work. Background color, that particular color, margin. Okay, let's try. Let's increase this. This is too much for testing. So this is working perfect. Oh, I remember why the background was actually working. It is because of we added margin. So now we've added margin. So this stuff now looks like this, right? But without this particular margin now, right, you're not going to see that particular background. But of course you can see it because margin now has been removed, right? So that is why, because this particular stuff have a color, background color of white. So you'll not be able to see the background color. So basically, but I don't want to attach that. So let's just leave this. So everything is actually working perfectly. There is no error anywhere. So it's working fine. So the next thing that we want to do, since we've treated global styles, another thing again that you might want to do, you might be thinking, okay, I want to change the font of my project, right? While styling my project with style component. So another thing you want to do, if we go to let's say like font.google, no, not font, sorry. I want to say font, right? Google fonts, font.google, let's do this. All right, this is Google font, and like this particular font, I would love to use Sora, and all I just need to do is let's say I want the 300, I think it's already there, so I added that on the 300, the regular and the bold as well. So I can just copy this link. So what I will do is I'll just copy this entire link now, Ctrl C, and I will go into my public directory on my index.html. I can paste inside of my head section here, and this will be my font. I will save this, then I'll come here and copy the font family as well, and I will go into my global styles and I'll paste it here, and all of a sudden I have like my fonts all change, right? So that is how we can work with fonts, right? So basically we've covered a lot with these things, right, that we've covered so far, and so good. You should be able to work with style components effectively, right, and do so many other things, right? So there's other important thing again that you might want to learn, right? You can also easily check out their documentation, go under advanced and see some of the things that you can learn under advanced. For example, other advanced you can learn theming, how to actually work with themes, right? And you can also work with refs, right? How you can work with what? Href to create something like this, and so on and so forth. So basically, right, so you might want to check that out as well. It's very, very easy to understand their documentation, and it's nice, right? So let me know in the comment section if you enjoyed this particular crash course on styled components, right, in React, and share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that when I make videos like this, or I choose like to make more videos on that style component, or to build a real project on that style component, you get to basically watch it and get notified. So you want to also turn on the notification bell as well. And don't forget to leave a comment saying React style component, so that YouTube will know that this particular video is about style component, and we get to refer it to other people that are looking at learning style components inside of React. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on your notification bell as well. And I hope to see you guys in the subsequent videos.